Did anyone else have a previously unknown planet hiding in the farthest reaches of the solar system? Now, more and more astronomers already believe that the strange Planet 9 is real. And that's not a vague guess, but a quite solid conclusion. After all the weird stuff going on in the Kuiper Belt certifiably noting an existence of a huge celestial body here. But that's not all. Now, a team of researchers isn't even totally sure, but they are now sure that an undiscovered planet must lurk at the edge of our home system. But just what made the experts come to this sensational conclusion? Why, then, has Planet 9 not been officially confirmed? And why is it so hard to track down? Have you ever asked where the comets that we see actually come from? So, if that's the case, then you have something in common with the Dutch astronomer Jan Hendrik Oort, because he was fed up with not knowing where the comets come from. In 1950, he formulated a bowl-shaped zone at the edge of the solar system, which serves as a natural reservoir for the comet cores. Unfortunately, the so-called Oort cloud was able to explain only long-period comets' orbits. The following year, however, a certain Gerard Kuiper had arrived to explain the provenance of their short-period brethren. While the Kuiper Belt has for years been enshrined as the basics of astronomy, it would take another 40-plus years before its very existence was confirmed in detail. So, we're talking here about a ring-shaped structure of icy debris, all just outside the orbits of Neptune and Pluto, which in addition to comets includes frosty chunks and small planets. But beyond that, and this is the exciting part, the Kuiper Belt has been suspected for some time now of literally hiding something bigger, a giant planet that has somehow escaped earthly research to this point. That's an exciting assumption. So what is it actually based on, and how likely is it that we have just missed a fully formed planet for our entire history? Well, not that unrealistic. Finally, as admitted above, the planetary secret would be situated beyond the orbit of Neptune and Pluto, far away from us, and so far from us that if it wasn't lost in some ugly radiation shower, it wouldn't be visible even to the most powerful telescopes extant. Fortunately, however, experts of such a planet do not require the visually direct observation in their search. It is Michael Brown who knows how to crack the riddle of the Kuiper Belt, and if anyone else knows how, they do. For some time now, the American astronomer has been obsessed with trying to find and uncover the icy cold worlds in our home system's outer reaches. Eris was the largest of these worlds. He gave it that name, but, he could have just as easily given it Pluto Killer. Not only did the finding of the dwarf planet aid in Pluto's 2006 removal from the list of official planets, but it had a hand in that discovery. The planetary banishment, as it still makes some folks on the edge of outrage to this day, appears to cause Brown to look back on his decisive find with humor and pride. In fact, he's Pluto Killer on X. While 2006 marked the year of Pluto's departure from the trail of Planet 9, 2006 was also the year the so-called distant detached objects set in motion a much larger astronomical ball rolling. The objects, also discovered by Brown, actually formed the cornerstone of a research study that led to a revolutionary result. Yes, a planet truly unknown to us could be cooped up in our remote Kuiper Belt world. Together with his colleague Konstantin, Batygin, the self-proclaimed Pluto Killer, investigated the question in detail of what those strange orbits are all about. Moreover, follow-up studies had already revealed that 6 of them describe an elliptical orbit pointing in the same direction. This just came as so confusing since the objects were observed to move at different speeds and their orbits are not the same size. The common orbital inclinations were equally confusing, though. After all 6 celestial bodies have orbits different by around 30 degrees from the orbital plane of the other planets and other objects in the solar system. Obviously, it can't be just an unusual coincidence, can it? So, the answer to that question was a definite no, right from the start, according to Brown. But even more than that was such a small percentage he actually thought this idea was out of the question. However, the infamous Planet 9 wasn't initially blamed for it all. the goings-on in the Kuiper belt. The gravitational effect of several massive objects was at first suggested by astronomers as the likely cause of this. However, it eventually had to be thrown out just as quickly as it appeared. That's right, for that scenario, the Kuiper belt would have to be 100 times more massive than it actually is. Therefore, the mystery had to be solved from some other direction. A few simulations down the line, Brown and Badigan were able to come to the remarkable conclusion that all of the observed anomalies could be explained by the existence of a planet that roughly matches the size of Neptune. In order to do that, its orbit would need to be shifted 180 degrees from that of the other planets and Kuiper belt objects. After all, it turned out that the astronomer duo soon found out that more and more observations ran together when such a planet was present. This is also useful to explain the special orbits of the trans-Neptunian object Sedna and another large body without gaps. Could that end all the debate? Why aren't we finding Planet 9 yet? The experts' model for Planet 9 puts its mass between 9 and 10 Earth masses and its orbit in between 400 and 1,500 astronomical units of the Sun. For reference, the distance between the Sun and Earth is about 150 million kilometers, so 1 astronomical unit is the distance between the Sun and Earth. Our earthly home only takes 365 days to orbit around the Sun, but Planet 9 takes about 20,000 years. The time when the mysterious planetary world is most out of reach of our normal telescopes is when we assume, as we almost certainly must, that it really exists. Finally, Planet 9 is far, far fainter than anything that we can see. In a similar vein, the model calculations of a Swiss team from the University of Bern indicate that its intrinsic luminosity is only 0.06 Neptune, placing it in the range where astrobiologists could readily open up the thought that some potentially Earth-like planets exist. Again, however, Neptune's value is 0.01. Additionally, the puny radiation of Planet 9 might also be mostly infrared. It's just the temperature would be, say, 47 Kelvin or 226 C, and just a little warmer than its cosmic bed. Yet, does this really translate to saying that we'll never be able to prove the existence of Planet 9 for sure? Well, not necessarily. It could already be undetected in images of past sky surveys because if the celestial body is currently closest to its closest point to the Sun. Even if Planet 9 is truly far away from the Sun, this means there is some hope. If the planet Bullseye is truly so far away, then it can be hit by a powerful telescope like the Vera Rubin Observatory. And it will be another year or two, because the reflecting telescope is still under construction, to be completed at the very earliest by March 2025 and put into operation. But the real story also includes the fact that the final confirmation of the celestial body without a doubt would augment the list of planets in the solar system as well as mysteries in the cosmos. Why? To the general view, the existence of Planet 9 would be problematic. Where there is still enough gas and dust to make large planets, they form. Of course, it's not a surprise, because only on those larger reservoirs, clumps, and full-fledged planets will gradually form. And with Planet 9, things get complicated. As they actually move literally far beyond the distance a primordial cloud could supply sufficient material able for giant planets to form, they average around 700 astronomical units, or just under 1 light-year, away from the Sun, though that's still well within the outer zone. So, the question is, after all, how exactly could you get a planet that's actually just a little bit smaller than Neptune into this ridiculously remote and eccentric orbit in the first place? In fact, this situation even runs up against the current limits of our planet formation models. That's the rub. Just as it's true that, according to one simulation, Planet 9 should be very much a shape like Neptune, that's also the point. If a celestial body actually spent far too Little time in the gas-rich heart of the primordial cloud, and how does it form an outer layer of ice and an enveloping dense gas envelope of helium and hydrogen at the same time? On the other hand, if Planet 9 is genuine, then it had to have somehow come to fruition. 3 different theories are then cited by researchers to explain how it formed. The first is that Planet 9 had to have formed in place, and in an almost circular orbit. Next, the passage of a neighboring star gravitationally captured it, and finally, brought it to its present exotic orbit. Of course, the likelihood of such a scenario is quite another matter. After all, the original cloud of the Sun must have been very much bigger and longer-lived than is now accepted. The question also arises whether Planet 9 may not have been cast out of the solar system entirely, and more, during the stellar tryst. Stars might have had a hand in it all, and the stars might just have been U-stars' little siblings. In this model, galactic tidal forces tore apart the star cluster, including our source of warmth and, if life, our Sun, along with its A-stellar family. Perhaps Planet 9 was stolen by one of its siblings, or it was snagged by Planet 9, with its gravity. The probability of a stolen planet, though, is only 1%. Therefore, the third and last of the formation theories is currently the most promising. In this theory, the formation of Planet 9 has proceeded as with Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune in the inner regions of the primordial cloud. Finally, it was thrown farthest out and into an eccentric orbit, as the outermost representative of the large planets, as gravity interactions and turbulence pushed them into much farther orbits. But the key thing here is that Planet 9 would have undoubtedly been flung out of the solar system entirely, unless it was slowed down by the dense gas of the primordial cloud or the passage of a nearby star. In fact, we've already discovered an exoplanet orbiting its binary star system in an even more extreme orbit. Despite all the plausible models, Planet 9 has, thus far, not advanced past the status of a purely theoretical planet in the missing persons case. Could it be that the James Webb Telescope may soon clarify the planetary darkness of the solar system?